And I thought you did an excellent job with the pastor saying, don't you think Jesus would want to talk to these people and help these people?
Jesus turned the tables over in the temple, right? He flipped the tables because he was tired of them, not doing what they're supposed to do in his Father's house and not living up to the tenets of Christianity.
No, he didn't. He compared the city's church invaders with Jesus cleansing the temple. How wrong can Don Lemon be? Well, let me count the ways. 16 ways that Don Lemon is so off the mark with his so unbiblical comparison. Number one, authority.
Good morning, everybody.
Jesus, good. It was his temple.
Here in LA. Good to see everybody. Come in. We have breaking news. Don Lemon has been arrested in Los Angeles early this morning at his hotel covering the Grammys. Let's get into it.
He has divine authority. As you know, the second person of the Trinity, the city's church mob, they have no authority. They have no right to enter into a private place of worship owned by somebody else, which is number two reason Don is wrong. Jesus owns the temple. The mob doesn't own city's church. Number three, Don is wrong because of office. Jesus was the Messiah, the Lord of the temple. The mob, they don't have an office, or they have no power over the church. They have actually no relationship to the church. Number four, the target, Jesus was confronting exploitation, ripping people off by selling stuff that they needed for the ceremonies at exorbitant rates, taking advantage of people. The mob, what were they after? Well, they disrupted prayer, preaching, because that's when they really started the rioting, during the preaching, the gall. What were they after? To make a scene. Jesus actually was going after something that was not biblical, which brings us to number five. Jesus' aim, he wanted to purify true worship. The mobs.
We are doing this one on the fly this morning. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. Just got up a little early. Don Lemon has been arrested in Los Angeles today. Oh my, let's check it out.
Lemon has been arrested in connection with an anti-ICE protest at a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Bill Malusian joins us now with more on this breaking news. Hey, Bill.
Yeah, Charlie, good morning to you. Our colleague David Spunt and I getting this breaking news from multiple law enforcement sources just minutes ago, confirming that former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles after midnight this morning at a hotel. This obviously all in connection with that storming of a church in St. Paul, Minnesota by that group of anti-ICE agitators. Now remember, the feds had gone to judges to try to get Don Lemon arrested before. They went to a magistrate judge in Minnesota who didn't sign off on an arrest warrant for him. Then it went to a judge above him. He didn't sign off on an arrest warrant for him. Then it went to an appeals court. They also decided not to sign off for an arrest warrant for him. So there was experts who were predicting that perhaps the feds would go to a grand jury. It remains to be seen if that's what happened here, but we can confirm that Don Lemon was arrested in Los Angeles by federal agents just after midnight Los Angeles time at a hotel. Now, typically, standard procedure with an arrest like this is the defendant will likely make their first court appearance sometime the same day. So there's a chance we may see Don Lemon make his first court appearance in Los Angeles.
We might have a hearing today.
Sometime today.
Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Come in.
All sorts of headlines. 3 other protesters from
Don Lemon has been arrested in Los Angeles. Breaking news, you guys. Get in here. Hit the like button.
Church storming, have already been arrested, including who the feds say was the organizer of that protest. The woman in the middle there is a school board member in St. Paul, and then the mugshot on the right is an online personality / agitator, if you want to call him that. He's known as the Woke Farmer. Those were the 3 people that the feds had already arrested, but we have confirmed that Don Lemon has now been arrested in Los Angeles in connection with that viral incident. We all saw the video of it that spread and drew widespread condemnation. The feds have been going after these people on FACE Act violations. So this is still breaking news. Once we get more details about the potential charges here, a court appearance, we'll, of course, update our viewers, guys.
Really appreciate it. Of course, if it was a grand jury that did indict him, that's pretty unimpeachable. Bill
Okay,
Melugin,
so
thank
what
you so
we're
much.
getting here is Don Lemon, as a result of a grand jury indictment, has been arrested in Los Angeles for the incident that, he went into a church. There's a whole thing there about that. We're going to get into this today.
During this breaking news that former CNN anchor Don Lemon has been arrested. Here's what we're learning. This is from Bill Melugin with Fox News saying, per multiple law enforcement sources, former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles this morning in connection to the storming of a church in Minnesota by anti-ICE agitators. We also do have some more social media posts as well that we'll put up on your screen here for you. But once again, as we just read there, this comes after Lemon followed and spoke to demonstrators who disrupted a church service in a video he posted to his YouTube channel. The New York Post also reporting that it is not immediately clear what charges he is facing at this time. This comes after former CNN host Don Lemon said during an interview last week that the Trump administration would go around a judge or retrofit a law to prosecute him after he followed agitators into a St. Paul, Minnesota church earlier this month. Also last week, a federal magistrate judge rejected the Justice Department's attempt to bring charges against Lemon. Lemon said that he needed to be in it for the long haul as well as keep calm and carry on. Lemon said after the DOJ called him out that he was just covering the protest and that it was an act of journalism. The agitators went to disrupt the service at St. Paul's City's church because they believed a pastor at the church had collaborated with U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So once again, we are bringing you this breaking news here. As we do know, Don Lemon arrested after that protest that disrupted that church service there in Minnesota. Now, we also do know that we heard from Homan a bit earlier this week as well. Immigration operations continuing in Minnesota. Just yesterday in White House Borders are Tom Homan's first briefing after taking over Operation Metro Surge, and he said they're working on a drawdown plan for federal agents in Minnesota, but it depends on cooperation with state and local officials. And this comes after Homan said he's had conversations with Minnesota Governor Tim Walz, the Minnesota Department of Corrections, Minnesota Attorney General, and other county sheriffs and local officials. And he said cooperation with local authorities, especially jails and prisons, will give federal agents better access to people in the United States illegally. This would then lead to fewer federal law enforcement on Minnesota streets.
Everybody.
Homan said the drawdown plan of federal agents depends on cooperation and targets they have left to find. As for the number of federal agents in Minnesota, as of just yesterday, Homan would not provide a number. Previously, court records show there were more than 3,000 federal agents in the state as part of Operation Metro Surge. So this is some breaking news here, and we are actually working behind the scenes here to bring you some more information. All right, so my producer, I don't know if you just heard her, she just handed me an article. We're getting some new information here. So let me just read this.
Everybody.
This is according to the Associated Press. A journalist, Don Lemon, has been arrested.
Don Lemon arrested this morning. Early this morning in Los Angeles at his hotel. He was covering the Grammys. I don't think he's going to be covering that anymore. Federal agents as a result of a grand jury indictment. See, this is what happens when you go in and you interrupt people's right to their religious freedoms.
He entered a Minnesota church and recorded anti-immigration enforcement protesters who disrupted a service in an incident that increased tensions between residents and the Trump administration. And that's according to his lawyers putting this out today. Lemon was taken into custody by federal agents in Los Angeles, where he had been covering the Grammy Awards. That's according to his attorney, Abby Lowell. It's unclear what charges.
His attorney, Abby Lowell, by the way, is the attorney who represented Hunter Biden.
Charges he is facing in the January 18th protest. The arrest came after a magistrate judge last week rejected prosecutors' initial bid to charge him. And Lemon, who was fired from CNN in 2023, has said he has no affiliation.
This is what happens when journalists cross the line, right?
To the organization that went into that church, and that he was there as a journalist chronicling protesters. And we also do have this post here I'd want to read to you. This is from, again, Abby Lowell, his attorney, saying, quote, Don has been a journalist for 30 years and his constitutionally protected work in Minneapolis was no
Well, if you like Don Lemon, you could put something on his books, get him some honey buns.
Different than what he has always done. The First Amendment exists to protect journalists whose role is to shine light on the truth and hold those in power accountable. A prominent civil rights attorney and And at 2,
right. We're going to cut to this article here that we can just check out here. Don Lemon arrested. Let me just get this frame a little bit different. We're doing this on the fly today, guys, because this just came in. I was in bed. It's very early here in Los Angeles, and we are looking here at an article. Let's check this. It was not immediately clear why Don Lemon was arrested. The Justice Department promised to pursue charges against him after the independent journalist covered a protest in a Minnesota church last week. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested by federal authorities Thursday night, according to his attorney. Lemon, 59, was taken into custody by federal agents in Los Angeles, where he was covering the Grammy Awards, his attorney, Abby Lowell, said in a statement. It was not immediately clear why Lemon was arrested. However, it was not immediately clear. I think it's immediately clear. However, the Justice Department promised to pursue charges against Lemon after the independent journalist covered a protest in a Minnesota church last week. Instead of investigating the federal agents who killed 2 peaceful Minnesota protests, the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest. And that is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case, Lowell said. This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. By the way, Abby Lowell is a $1,000 an hour attorney. Represented Hunter Biden. Lemon's representative and a representative for his husband did not immediately return requests for comment. Lemon's arrest is the latest development in federal government's immigration crackdown in Minneapolis, in which 2 U.S. citizens have been shot and killed. 3 people who disrupted the same church service in St. Paul that Lemon covered were also arrested. Demonstrators gathered at the service because its pastor allegedly works for immigration and customs enforcement. So that is crazy. Let's take a look at over on X. We're going to take a look at Brian Stelter. Helter Stelter over here. We're going to check this out. A full statement here on Brian Stelter's X account that was posted 5:04 a.m. What time is it? 6 something here in LA. Jesus. I can't believe I'm up this early, but this is important. We got to get it. This is what you got to do, all right, to be in the big leagues. The full statement from Lemon's attorney. Excuse me. Don has been a journalist for 30 years. I should do an impression of Brian. Don has been a journalist for 30 years, and his constitutionally protected work in Minneapolis was no different than what he has always done. The First Amendment exists to protect journalists whose role it is to shine light on the truth and hold those in power accountable. There is no more important time for people like Don to be doing his work. Instead of investigating federal agents who killed 2 peaceful Minnesota protesters, the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest and the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case. The unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. That is a statement from Abby Lowell, who is Don's attorney, also the attorney for Hunter Biden. Let's take a look at Don Lemon. All right, just let's see, when is this from? 10 days ago, where he is discussing this on his YouTube channel. All right, and this is breaking news, guys. Come in, hit the like button. So right here, we're going to have a listen to his take on what happened at that church.
King won't let you say jokes about him. So the First Amendment is completely optional in their eyes. And let me tell you, the First Amendment includes freedom of the press, freedom of religion, freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, freedom to redress grievances. So that is absolutely under attack when FCC licenses are on the line based on whether or not you're congenial in the eyes of the president. So yeah, join the club. I know as journalists want to be objective, neutral, but the truth is, if you have an unjust ruler, objectivity is a threat to them. And so, sorry, but that's how it is, friend. Your First Amendment prerogatives are interfering with their tyrannical prerogatives, and that's how it is.
Can I ask you something, Dale? You can jump in if you have a question, but I want to ask you about what I've heard is there's the FACE Act that they want to try to prosecute people for the activists, and they're saying that with me, but again, I'm not an activist. I'm not one of the protesters. And then what is it called? The KK
Being arrested on Friday really does suck.
KK Act, right? DL that they're saying.
Sure.
The Ku Klux Klan Act. Can you tell us about that? Are you familiar with that?
Now, with the federal arrest, usually there is a hearing the same day, so it is very likely we will see Don Lemon in court this morning, downtown Los Angeles, in the federal court building. This is a federal arrest.
I can only say this. This
I was asking the Attorney General if he's familiar.
Yeah, I'm familiar with the FACE Act. In Minnesota, we uphold the right of a woman to choose, and some of the activists, will, sort of we're invoked. It has to, the law has to do with whether or not.
That is Keith Ellison. That is the Attorney General of Minnesota, who is also, by the way, in a bit of hot water.
People's freedom to protest, generally regarding reproductive clinics and things like that. So that's the FACE Act. And then, you have, but how are they tying you into it? That is escaping me.
I don't know. There's someone in here saying, Don, you were chanting. I never chanted at all. Someone said, Don, you were chanting. Never chanted. That's not what I was doing at all.
Well, if you're chanting.
You can see right here the footage from there, some takes from D.L. Hughley, actor, comedian, and Keith Ellison, the freaking Attorney General.
Well, Don, let me just tell you, we're not chanting. Chanting cannot be a crime. It's freedom of expression, right? I can tell you that, you may not have been chanting, or you may have been, I don't know. You say you weren't chanting, I believe you, but chanting can never be the basis of a criminal act, right?
What's
in America, you chant.
What's hard for me to accept is when in Charlottesville they chanted, "Jews will not replace us." That was protected. There were good people on both sides.
Oh wow!
I have fought and advocated for the right of everybody to say anything they want to. I'm a proponent of the First Amendment. It is clear that this administration and MAGA
is going right into a service. I mean, I'm looking at this, and he's going right into an active service, interrupting it, which means he is interfering with someone else's First Amendment right.
General, despises.
I don't think you can argue First Amendment when you're interrupting someone else's First Amendment.
Protest is way more than this despised pedophile.
Wow.
When somebody says stand back and stand by.
Back to this, we're going to cut right over here and listen to something from Face the Nation.
Something has happened between that, obviously, and now.
Yeah. We are continuing to report on exactly how things got to that point of him being arrested, involving the HSI and the FBI overnight in Los Angeles. But look, the officials that I have talked to here in Minnesota have been the state officials, extremely critical of the handling of not just the ICE operation, not just the killing of Alex, Freddie, and Renee Good, but the agents' participations or the agents' activities against people just trying to document what they're doing, and that includes journalists. We have seen agents who have, pushed journalists or forced them out of the scene, saying that they are impeding with law enforcement activity. There's a great deal of concern here in Minnesota, and of course across the country too, with those actions. So yesterday I sat with the prosecutor for the state of Minnesota, who is overseeing the investigation into Alex Preddy's killing and Renee Good's killing. And she was very strong with her words about how the federal government
Don
is
Lemon
acting. She
arrested
says
today
that
in Los Angeles.
her
Everybody, come on in.
investigators, the state investigators, are being excluded from the evidence and the investigation, the federal investigation into those killings. She's very concerned, calls it all unprecedented, concerned with the way that that the government is kind of conflicting with the state. And this is all, I mean, right now, what we've been covering here, this is all happening as Tom Homan showed up yesterday in Minneapolis and basically changed the tone and said that there would be a scaling back of the amount of agents that are here on the ground if the state cooperates. When you see such a high-profile journalist as Don Lemon, somebody who was an anchor for years at CNN, somebody whose face and name everybody, I mean, many people recognize in this country, being arrested while he was at a church interviewing the pastor that was being, targeted by the protesters, or, who the protesters showed up to protest. I think you have such a big story, you have such a big concern, such a strong message about the First Amendment. That is what we're hearing from Don Lemon's attorney. We don't know what the charges are.
Like and subscribe,
we
guys.
don't know exactly what Don Lemon's
So,
activities
Lilia, let me
were inside that
interrupt you
church. But
just
in terms of messaging, yeah, go ahead.
Just want to interrupt you momentarily because our Nicole Skanger has just shared with us the specific charges that Mr. Lemon now faces. So we want to share with our viewers what that is. His charges include conspiracy against rights. You're seeing that on your screen, and for violating the FACE Act. Let me just explain what these charges include. On the conspiracy against rights, this statute protects against conspiracies to interfere with rights such as voting, housing, or bodily integrity.
Okay, so these are some of the charges that Don Lemon is looking at. Jesus, this is heavy duty. He is in deep shit, dog. Conspiracy to deprive rights. Uh-oh. Oh, boy. Violation of the FACE Act. Interfering by force of someone's First Amendment rights. Donnie.
For the second charge he faces, this is the FACE Act. That's the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances.
He knew what he was doing.
This is a charge which forbids using force, threats, or physical obstruction to stop individuals from accessing reproductive health clinics or places of worship. That sounds key. It also prohibits damaging or destroying
when life gives you lemons.
Property at these locations. So, Lilia, now that we know two of the charges that Don Lemon faces, it does appear to be connected to that demonstration in a church from about 6 days ago.
Oh, you think?
A magistrate judge refused to bring charges at that time, and we know the administration has been pushing since then to appeal and find a way to make something stick. I believe you covered this when it took place a week ago. Lilia, you've been covering so much, I'm not sure, but remind us why the FACE Act itself...
I wasn't here.
Okay, but remind us why the FACE Act would be key.
I wasn't here, but the source who gave me the tip this morning, how we learned for the first time that Don Lemon had been arrested, suggested, he didn't have the warrant, but suggested that it would be connected to the FACE Act, and this seems to be what the government was looking for. It's an interesting charge. Again, we need to, we don't have the evidence. We don't know exactly what happened, but Don Lemon and his attorney and his representatives...
Everybody hit that like button for me. Let's get this live stream out there.
...have said he was there just interviewing the pastor, doing his job as a journalist.
I think a lot of people saw this coming.
It's very concerning to think about when we are there covering a protest, which we do constantly. We do all kinds of protests. The actions of the protesters and whatever charges are brought against the protesters, whether or not they are legal,
that is his husband.
Justified, protected by the First Amendment, you don't have that expectation that you are going to be also arrested and charged for being there. We have been tackled, tear gassed in this country and other countries. But when it comes to pressing charges, this is a very serious thing that the government is saying to all of us covering protests, to all of us engaging in journalism and bringing the audience what is happening from the ground. especially.
Okay, we're going to cut right to another story here, watching what happened in the church that day. This is pretty raucous.
Renee good! Renee good! Renee good! Renee good! Renee good! Justice for Renee good! Hands up! Hands up! Don't shoot! Don't shoot!
Hands up.
Don't shoot!
Shoot her in the
Don't
church.
shoot! Don't shoot!
They're performing a church service. Now, the reason they went in there is because they allegedly, the pastor was working for ICE. Thank you, Ron.
This is the beginning of what's
$5 super chat. Tony, you rock, ZBT Homer. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Anybody who pops in a super chat, memberships, anything like that, we will put it right here on the screen and we will read it for you. I will read it. Who's we?
going to happen here. When you violate people's due process, when you pull people off the street, you start
Thank you very much, Rhonda.
dragging them and hurting them and not abiding by the Constitution. When you start doing all of that, people get upset and angry.
Now, it's likely that his hearing would be at, well, not exactly 8:30. The court opens at 8:30. Then it would be probably around 9:30 LA time, where we might see Don Lemon in court today. It's going to be, I don't know if it's going to be his arraignment. His attorney will be there. Abby Lowell, who was also Hunter Biden's attorney, interestingly enough. Now, the lead pastor was Jonathan Parnell. We'll see him in just a second.
What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable.
Pastor John Parnell.
Well, it's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will say,
I have to take care of my flock.
okay,
my
but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment to freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
Don Lemon arrested by federal agents. He was arrested by federal agents this morning in Los Angeles. This is a federal arrest. This is very serious for Don Lemon. Violation of the FACE Act. Look at that. It is being investigated by the DOJ Civil Rights Division. Just see real quick in the chat here. Put a 1 in the chat if you like Don Lemon. Put a 2 in the chat if you fucking hate him. A 1 if you like Don Lemon. A 2 if you don't like Don Lemon. Let's go. Okay, Elvis. Relax. So, Elvis, is Don Lemon doing a little jailhouse rock? Or jailhouse?
Well, 1,500 American soldiers have been...
All right, so We're going to jump back to this other story again for a little more coverage. Even Australia has picked this one up.
Especially when it comes to somebody who is, not as well. He is working as an independent journalist, but somebody who people know as a journalist, who has such a name and a face and is so widely recognized. You really have to consider what is the message that the government is sending, even after multiple courts had refused to file those charges. It's very important for us to understand, and this is something that we've seen the administration do when it comes to immigrants too, that when one state is not friendly to the intention of the government, then they move immigrants to another state. So I'm very curious to know, this grand jury was called yesterday, what kind of evidence they saw. Look, we don't have the evidence, we don't have the facts, we don't know exactly what happened.
This is a grand jury indictment.
Was obstructing what he was doing there, but I think the intention, or I think we have to pay very close attention to why this much insistence in bringing charges against Don Lemon, and what is the intention, or what is the message that is sending to all of us who do this for a living, and to the public at large.
And Lilia, I'll just share with you that
stay out of churches. There's the message.
The consequences of these two charges on the conspiracy against rights, you could have fines.
I am live from Los Angeles.
10 years in
Hitting
prison.
it early.
And the freedom of access to
Thank you for
clinic
joining me. Hit the
entrances or
like button,
face
guys.
act, a
Breaking news.
violation of that is a misdemeanor on your first offense with up to 6 months in prison for nonviolent obstruction. Subsequent offenses, though, can be categorized as a felony with penalties increasing up to 18 months for nonviolent offenses, up to 3 years for violent offenses.
Don Lemon is looking at up to 3 years in federal prison. Holy shit.
So serious
Super
potential
chats get read
consequences
live
for a
right
former
here.
CNN news anchor and independent journalist who was, as you have been doing, covering the incredible events there from the past few weeks. We'll let you go for now, Lilia. We appreciate your reporting as you are there in Minneapolis. Our thanks also to Jake Rosen, who helped us get you information on this, as well as Nicole Skanger, who shared with us moments ago what the specific charges are. Former CNN news anchor and independent journalist Don Lemon arrested last night. He was arrested weeks after covering an anti-ICE demonstration in Minnesota, charged with 2 specific potential violations:
I bet he was
conspiracy
staying
to
at the
deprive
W.
rights and a violation of
That's my guess, at the W in the Mondrian.
Face Act, or interfering by force of someone's First Amendment rights. We're going to gather more information on this in these next few hours, and have
I'll tell you,
updates
this
for you
story
throughout.
is popping right now. Let's get a look over here.
Devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest, and that is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case. Again, I'm directly quoting from Don Lemon's attorney here. The statement ends by saying, "This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court." That's a statement from Don Lemon's attorney on his arrest last night. We're covering this here on CBS News as our reporters try to confirm information with their sources in LA, in Washington, and in other.
I'm going to break over here.
We have breaking news for you. Former CNN anchor Don Lemon was arrested late last night on federal charges tied to a protest earlier this month at a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. Lemon says he was reporting as a journalist when demonstrators interrupted a service to protest immigration enforcement. A magistrate judge previously rejected the case against him, but prosecutors later sought and obtained his arrest. Lemon was taken into custody in Los Angeles and is scheduled to appear in federal court this morning. His lawyer, Abby Lowell, calls the prosecution an unprecedented attack on the First Amendment. We have Lisa Rubin here, Molly John Fax joining us. But Jonathan Lemire, can we go through a little more what happened in St. Paul, in the church, so then Lisa can break down these charges and how it all matches up?
Yeah, we'll lean on her legal expertise in just a moment. But Don Lemon is now an independent journalist, no longer at CNN. He was in Minnesota covering the protests following the 2 shooting deaths there, Renee Good and then Alex Pretty. This one on January 18th in St. Paul, so just over the river from Minneapolis, protesters went inside a church. They were disruptive to this service. We'll get to Lisa in a moment as to why that would be a charge here. But and Don Lemon, to remind viewers, is, someone who Donald Trump has criticized repeatedly in the past. Lemon has been pretty tough on Trump.
Don Lemon, he's a
He's called
loser.
him names. He frequently calls him a liar. Lemon is someone that Trump has gone after on Truth Social and the like for many years. He's always been an object of some ridicule in the MAGA movement. But what is so important here is this is what matters, is that Lemon says, and we will see if it is the truth, but Lemon says he was acting as a journalist. He was not participating in the protest.
Yes, he was.
Covering the protest.
That was my question.
And if that is the case, that is indeed,
in my opinion,
a chilling moment here for a journalist in the United States of America doing his job as a journalist and being charged for it.
Oh, I don't think he has to worry about
the
soap. He is probably isolated in protective custody.
Interviews inside I know the protest was happening, and so he followed the
Shut up,
protest in
Bill.
to cover the story. At any point, did
Just kidding.
he take
Say what you
part?
want to
Yeah,
hear.
we'll see if we have footage here, but he interviewed some of the protesters, he interviewed some of the parishioners, he interviewed,
Hey,
I think he tried to talk to the minister at one point,
right.
Which was perhaps disruptive in that moment. But again, he's acting as
a
journalist. And Lisa, let's talk about what charge
I'll hit you back in a little bit,
is being
86.
levied here, and your opinion as to
pretty
why
quickly.
this is so important.
Let's talk about what we don't know. We know that Don Lemon is still in federal
I was
custody
just returning
right now
from emails as I woke up, looked at them, and I saw
my
this, and I said,
understanding
I gotta
is
get to
no
work.
charges have been filed and unsealed. Don Lemon and his legal team don't even know when he'll make his initial appearance in a Los Angeles federal court this morning. That having
Everybody
been said,
checking in from the UK.
Jonathan, based on the criminal complaint and affidavit that were filed when authorities tried to get initial charges.
You're in the UK. Throw that British flag up, huh? Throw that British flag up in the chat.
Against Don Lemon to stick, I can tell you that it appears that the federal government is pursuing charges under what's called the FACE Act. And the FACE Act is something that folks who follow the reproductive justice movement are very familiar with because it most commonly has been used to prosecute people who block access to reproductive health clinics, who sit there and physically block it. But the FACE Act also prohibits interfering by force with the right to religious worship. And this is an administration who has said they won't use the FACE Act to prosecute crimes of the first type, and they are going to start to use the FACE Act to prosecute crimes of the second. When you look at the affidavit that was filed in that criminal complaint, originally against 8 people, only 3 of them were eventually charged. There is lots of recitation about what Don Lemon allegedly did during that church protest, talking about him both interviewing people outside and sort of talking with the organizers of that protest, sort of embedding with them as they prepare to go in.
An argument that we've seen not only here, we've seen it in the United States, interrupting a religious service. That's basically one of the civil rights charges that he is looking at.
And then live streaming the protest. And as you noted, even the affidavit quotes him as saying, I'm just here to chronicle and report on what's happening. He also underscores at one point, I'm going to read to you from the complaint, I'm looking at a young man who's in the corner. He's frightened. He's scared. He's crying. People are leaving church. An unknown male parishioner was observed.
Don Lemon has fantastic representation. He's got Abby Lowell, who's very experienced in federal court. So, if there's something to be contested here, then Don Lemon has the proper representation to do it. He's going to get his day in court, and we'll see what happens.
Yelling to the agitators, telling them
I don't like anybody going to jail, but that's sometimes part of what happens.
Get out. And then he says, I don't think they know what to do. I'm sure they probably called the local authorities right now. If I'm guessing the authorities, the federal authorities, are relying on some of Don Lemon's own language to suggest that the protesters themselves were putting the people in the church in fear of their safety.
And if you're in the U.S., let's throw some American flags up there in the chat. Let me see who's in the house.
Which is how they are criminalizing this protest. But how?
Put up the flag of where you are. How about that? Everybody.
That means Don Lemon himself is criminally liable is something that I think you and others are going to be struggling to understand in the coming days. Again, we have not seen the federal charges. They have not been unsealed in Minnesota, nor has any indication of his arrest been unsealed in Los Angeles. We await those right now, along with his legal team. Abby Lowell, of course, saying this is...
This is interesting that this show is not showing the charges that another show did show already on their show.
Violent infringement of Don Lemon's First Amendment rights.
And I think I remember watching some of the coverage of Don Lemon covering what was happening inside the church. And I think that he was talking about the children who were crying in the church, that there was a lot going on at the same time, and said, that's what happens in a protest or something.
He said, I'm going to read from that, Mika, you're right.
Get me to that?
Yes. This is the beginning of what's going to happen here. Again, this is from Don Lemon's live stream the day of the protest inside the church. When you violate people's due process, when you pull people off the street and start dragging them and hurting them and not abiding by the Constitution, when you start doing all of that, people get upset and angry. And then the affidavit continues, name redacted, which people understand to be Don Lemon, goes on to suggest that according to the Constitution, again, this is the Department of Justice's words, there are no limitations to protesters on where and when they can exercise their constitutional rights. That's the whole point of it, is to disrupt, and that's what they're doing, and that's what I believe.
So Don Lemon now being held, though, and they have...
Take a look real quick at what is happening right now in Minneapolis. All right, right now Minneapolis has a pretty large protest going on.
Immigrants are welcome here. No fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate. No fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate. No fear. Immigrants are welcome here. No hate. No fear.
A lot of people out there today. This is from BG on the scene. Big shout out to BG.
Leave our state! 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 Abolish our state! Abolish our state! Leave our state! Leave our state! Leave our state! Leave our state! Guys, let's start walking this way. How do we start walking this way? Hey guys, why don't we start walking this way? You have Did you listen to us? Do it another day. Not today. Not today.
This is live courtesy of BG on the scene. Well, we're just a couple minutes. Today is what's supposed to be some sort of national walkout. And we'll cut back to this in a second. We've got some more coverage on the Don Lemon arrest.
With breaking news that CBS News has just confirmed. Former CNN news anchor Don Lemon was arrested last night. We have 3 sources with direct knowledge confirming that to CBS News. Another source familiar says a grand jury was impaneled on this
Hit that
yesterday.
like button for me, guys. Let's get this live stream out there.
Now,
everybody hit the like button.
Are still trying to get specifics as to why this was, but you'll remember Lemon is now an independent journalist and was covering the St. Paul, Minnesota ICE protest at a church last Sunday, which attracted the frustration of this administration, while some were defending his right as a journalist to cover what was a church prayer service, a reason that protesters, anti-ICE protesters were at that church was because the pastor there also served as a related ICE official in some capacity.
By the way, this live stream is on the front page when you search Don Lemon in YouTube. Thank you so much.
Jake Rosen now joins us on the phone with some more details on this arrest. Jake, good morning. What more can you tell us about what we do and don't know at this stage?
Well, Errol, what we do know is that this concludes
Don Lemon arrested
a 2-week period of time in which the Trump
in Los
administration and the
Angeles
Justice Department have tried to
by the DOJ
detain and arrest him. We know that 2 weeks ago, a federal magistrate judge in Minnesota did not sign off on arrest warrants for Lemon, other people that were with him, and other protesters who did enter a church in St. Paul, Minnesota. The Justice Department was very critical of Lemon, saying that he was not there in his journalistic capacity. However, people close to Lemon have said that he was and that his work is protected. In a statement last week, he said that the actions of that judge in declining that confirmed the nature of Lemon's First Amendment protected work, and said the Justice Department had done a, quote, stunning and troubling effort to silence and punish a journalist for doing his job. We know that President Trump has been critical of Don Lemon since he was at CNN as a cable news anchor, and we know that the way that the Justice Department has postured itself around what's going on in Minnesota, around anti-ICE protests there, by simply entering that kind of field of play, Errol, we know that he became a target for the Justice Department to have a high-profile arrest of, and it appears that that is happening.
And Jake, this information just getting confirmation within the past hour. If we take a look at Don Lemon's social feed, it appears that he is scheduled to host a red carpet event at the Grammys this Sunday. It's airing on CBS. It's being
I don't think Don's going to be there. He might be. They might bail him out.
Academy. He's thankful to the Academy for allowing him as an independent journalist to take that role. Is it clear yet that Lemon will or is expected to be released and will be able to make his commitments this weekend, or do we just not know that yet?
We just don't know that yet. We're still working on figuring out where exactly he was arrested and what court proceedings could happen. As you know, Errol, it's a Friday. Something would likely have to happen today in terms of an initial appearance in front of a federal magistrate judge.
Oh, boy.
There wouldn't necessarily be a plea today, but from there, it's possible that Lemon would be released on his own recognizance,
Yeah.
especially
They'll probably release him, OR. I don't think there'll be any bail.
he's such a high-profile individual. It would be difficult for him to kind of do any maneuvering to escape.
He's not going anywhere.
The situation that he finds himself in today. But, you know, we should remind our audience how unprecedented an arrest like this is. Too, we saw the raiding of a Washington Post reporter's home.
Hit that like button, guys.
And seeing a local news anchor be arrested for what he and his legal team says was First Amendment protected activity is certainly a stunner on this front.
And just to emphasize a point you've just made, Jake, that magistrate judge.
So this is what they're talking about right here is the FACE Act, the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances Act. So that's what we have right here. This, everybody can look this up. I'll put this link in the chat so people can go have a look at this themselves. But there you can see this is the FACE Act. This is what they've been talking about. Okay. Wow. This is pretty wild.
Who refused to approve an arrest warrant for Lemon about 6 days ago, Douglas Micco. He said that prosecutors then had failed to present evidence that would justify an arrest.
Mayhem Lemon.
Again, Lemon, as an independent journalist, was covering anti-ICE protests at a church.
And this is going to be a very pivotal argument in the First Amendment and how journalists cover different stories. I think this is going to be something very important for everybody to keep an eye on.
The pastor at that church was connected to ICE activities. So that...
You could double tap the screen also if you're watching on a device. Boop, boop, boop.
Action, if Lemon was covering the demonstration, would typically be protected under the First Amendment right of a free press. We're just looking at some of the footage from that demonstration. At the time, the administration and people connected with the Trump administration had characterized this as an interference with church and religious practice and services. There are laws on the books that prevent that, but as you mentioned, and as I've just repeated, the magistrate judge at the time didn't see evidence of a crime being committed. So how serious would this be if the administration then found a way to charge Lemon with something and have now arrested him under it? Again, we don't know that there's a direct connection at this moment, but how significant would that be?
It would be very significant because, again, typically, when you think about something like January 6th,
and Don Lemon's probably pretty pissed off.
Reporters did go into the Capitol in their First Amendment capacity.
Better to be pissed off than pissed on.
Out in the field working, they usually do have First Amendment protections against this. However, the Justice Department has alleged in what appears to be court filings, and looks like they're taking the step now to confirm this, that they believe that he was operating outside of that capacity, essentially as a protester who went into that church. We know that in this kind of back and forth over whether or not he would ever be arrested in the last couple of weeks, there were other protesters who were charged with him, and then the judge did not sign off on their arrest warrant. And it was not immediately clear what the Justice Department would do next, but our sources are telling us that there was a grand jury impaneled, which means peers in Minnesota or potentially elsewhere, Errol, chose to indict him, which means it's not just coming from the Justice Department going to a judge. We'll see what those charges are, hopefully shortly.
Jake Rosen on the phone with us on this breaking news. If you're just joining us this morning, I'm Errol Barnett at the CBS Broadcast Center here in New York City as we report on the arrest of former CNN News anchor Don Lemon, who currently works as an independent journalist. Our teams have confirmed that he was arrested last night. That's according to 3 sources with direct knowledge. And a source familiar says a grand jury was impaneled on this issue yesterday. The FBI and the HSI were involved in that arrest, according to these sources. And as we've been discussing, we do not know yet the specific reason, but Lemon was covering a protest in St. Paul, Minnesota, last week, centered around
Don Lemon in custody
services.
in Los Angeles.
CBS News correspondent Lilia Luciano has been...
Welcome, everybody. Come in, hit that like button.
Trying to gather more information on this. She joins us from Minneapolis, where she continues.
So we're going to head back over to this protest here out in front of the Whipple building in Minneapolis.
I'm pretty proud of this one,
live.
Okay, yeah, go.
And we're going to cut to a little earlier.
Stay home because of fear that ICE is getting. And they are home without help. intaa kadib baan la socotaan dad baa darteena u dhintay oo u dhaawacmay marka annagana sida cadaalad u And we are here to stand up solidarity for those who stand up in the community, for those who sacrifice and lose their lives. That's why we are here standing with them. Yes! Sida la socotaan darawalada waxaa lagu soo weeraray eelboorka waa la qabarka shacabka. And as you know, the Uber and Lyft drivers are the main resources the drivers make, and also there were times that I came at the green light. waxaan nahay dad isku duuban oo u helinaya dariskooda iyo asxaabtooda. We all are one community and we stand together to stand up for the oppressors. Real loud. waxaan nahay reer doona sidaas ugu duubannahay sida dadka naftooda ay u waayeen waxaan diyaar u nahay inaan u weyno annagana si aan u difaacno dadka. We are standing in solidarity with the community because we are one Minnesota and we will keep fighting until justice is being heard. And thank you very much.
Thank you!
We are Minnesota! We protect our neighbors! We are Minnesota!
We protect our neighbors! We are Minnesota! We protect our neighbors! We are Minnesota! We protect our neighbors! We are Minnesota!
Good morning! Good morning! This is Imam Asad Zaman.
We protect our neighbors! We are
Good morning! This is Imam Asad Zaman. We are here in solidarity today with the bravest Minnesotans, our 22 neighbors who have been indicted and persecuted by the federal government.
That's right! Hold on!
We are here to say it is our right and it is our duty to protect and defend our neighbors.
Yes!
It is our duty to stand up for our human and constitutional rights.
Yes!
In response, Pam Bondi and Tom Homan want to criminalize the most basic actions that Americans take in a free society to defend our neighbors. Speaking, recording, documenting, observing. We confess that we love our neighbors.
Yes.
We confess that we feed our neighbors.
Yes.
And we're headed back over to some more coverage here.
Breaking news this morning. Newsmax's
Everybody's on
chief
this story
Washington
this morning.
correspondent James Rosen confirming former CNN anchor Don Lemon is in police custody. This following the city.
He's not in police custody. He's in federal custody.
Church protest in Minneapolis. Lemon is reportedly charged with conspiracy to deprive rights and with a violation of the FACE Act, interfering by force of someone's First Amendment rights. More in a moment. Good Friday morning to you. Thanks so much for tuning into National Report. I'm Sean Kreisman. Don Lemon's attorney, Abby Lowell, releasing this statement and reading in part, the First Amendment exists to protect journalists whose role it is to shine light on the truth and hold those in power accountable. At that protest, Don Lemon filming and interviewing the pastor. You may remember that, the pastor asking him to leave, and he did so multiple times, saying that protest in the church is unacceptable.
Shut up, Karen.
What do you think of this? I mean, this is unacceptable. It's shameful. It's shameful to interrupt a
Karen, you better hit that like button.
public gathering of Christians in worship.
But there were folks who will.
I have to take care of my flock.
Okay, but listen, we live in there's a constitution in the First Amendment too.
Hey, look, he's trying to leave, and he's still holding him. He said, "I've got to take care of my flock and my family." He's still. That could be something that is a point of contention here.
Freedom of speech and freedom to assemble and protest.
We're here to worship. We're here to worship Jesus because that's the hope of these cities. That's the hope of the world is Jesus Christ.
Did you try to talk to them as a Christian?
No one is willing to talk.
Okay.
I have to take care of my church and my family, so I asked that you actually would also leave this building.
You don't want us to chronicle.
Okay, so the pastor right there asked him to leave the building. That's very interesting.
You're here to worship.
I'm always worship. I'm a Christian.
We're here to worship.
Chief Washington correspondent James Rosen live now with the details on this and what we know so far. James, good morning.
Sean, good morning to you. This has been breaking overnight. Federal law enforcement sources tell Newsmax that Don Lemon was arrested at a Los Angeles hotel around midnight local time, with the operation carried out by a joint team from the FBI.
Anybody want to guess what hotel it is? I think it's either the Mondrian or the W. That is my guess.
HSI. That's Homeland Security Investigations, a unit of the Department of Homeland Security. Yep. These sources tell us, moreover, that the former CNN anchor briefly resisted arrest. This was, we are told, after he had been handcuffed in the hotel lobby and was brought to an elevator, but that otherwise the event unfolded without incident. Lemon's arrest followed the return of a federal indictment in U.S. District Court in Minnesota last night of him and 5 others.
If it was on camera, who you arrested? And Don Lemon gets all crazy.
All those have been arrested as well or are being sought by authorities, we are told. The charges that Don Lemon faces are violations of Title 18 U.S. Code Sections 241 and 248. The first charge is conspiracy to deprive of a constitutional or statutory right. The latter charge is covered by the FACE Act, which protects houses of worship.
And we have a guest hosting situation. This is on Don Lemon's YouTube channel. He has a guest in there. Let's take a look at this right now. This is from Don Lemon's YouTube channel.
And one of the things that we always talk about is the importance of independent media. We talk about how much it's necessary for us to
Don Lemon has a guest host on his YouTube channel.
Those who are out doing the work every single day. And that support is needed more than ever today for independent journalists like Don, who I'm honored to guest host for this morning, and like Georgia Fort, who was also arrested last night. The information that we have so far, and we'll be sharing as much as we can with you throughout this hour, is that Don was arrested late last night in Los Angeles. He's there, as you all know, for the Grammys. He is scheduled to be live on the red carpet covering Grammy events.
Not today.
He was arrested by federal agents in Los Angeles around midnight, and he has released the following.
Actually, he will probably be out and be able to continue his hosting duties.
Statement through his attorney, Abby Lowell. Don Lemon was taken into custody by federal agents last night in Los Angeles, where he was covering the Grammy Awards. Don has been a journalist for 30 years, and his constitutionally protected work in Minneapolis was no different than what he has always done. The First Amendment exists to protect journalists whose role is to shine light on the truth and hold those in power accountable. There is no more important time for people like Don to be doing this work. Instead of investigating the federal agents who killed 2 peaceful Minnesota protesters, the Trump Justice Department is devoting its time, attention, and resources to this arrest. And that is the real indictment of wrongdoing in this case. This unprecedented attack on the First Amendment and transparent attempt to distract attention from the many crises facing this administration will not stand. Don will fight these charges vigorously and thoroughly in court. I see many of you saying free Don Lemon, and of course that's what we are demanding, that he be released immediately, and we want these charges dropped. I'm not here by myself this morning. There are so many experts who we've come to count on during the time that Don has been here on the Don Lemon Show, the Don Lemon channel on YouTube. And one of them is Charles Coleman, ESQ. He's my friend, my brother. He's a former prosecutor. He's a frequent commentator in MSNBC and elsewhere. Welcome, Charles. Good morning.
Good morning, Monique. Thanks for having me.
Well, Don's having us, Charles.
This is true. This is true.
And what an odd time for us to be in. We actually on this show a number of times in the past couple of weeks have had the conversation about this very thing. We've discussed what this started with in Minnesota, which was a group of protesters, not Don, who's a journalist, not Georgia, who's a journalist. A group of protesters staged a pop-up protest at a church in Minneapolis, Minnesota, and Don was covering that event, covering the news story. And now we find that Don has been arrested and, according to the DHS, charged under 18 USC 241 and 248. What are your initial thoughts?
Well, Monique, one of the things that we may have
harsh.
been able to sort of read the tea leaves to determine that was confirmed today, apparently by the wife of Stephen Miller, is that Don Lemon and as well as the other journalist, Georgia, who was arrested after apparently these things went to a grand jury. They were presented in front of a grand jury. And the reason that that's significant is because the federal government ran out of options effectively when they went to a magistrate judge and they could not secure an arrest warrant. And then they appealed that and they could not have that appeal granted. And so their attempts to go through a magistrate judge in order to secure an arrest warrant were both denied, which left them with very few options, which was to go in front of the grand jury. I had sort of thought about this as a former prosecutor because their options were limited. The thing about going in front of a grand jury that our audience needs to understand is, the old saying is very much so true that you can indict a ham sandwich. It is not difficult to get an indictment when you have a presentation in front of the grand jury. Speaking as a former prosecutor, and one of the reasons why, for people who don't know that,
ham sandwich
is it's a secret proceeding. It is a proceeding that is effectively run by the prosecutor. There is no magistrate there. There is
live
no
from
judge
Don
there.
Lemon's
There is no
YouTube.
arbiter. It is basically the prosecutor presents whatever facts they choose to present. The defendant has a right in most cases to testify, but in most cases will not testify. The defense attorney cannot ask any questions or be present if their client is not testifying. And so no one actually knows what was said, who presented, what witnesses they presented, what evidence the grand jury saw. And so all of those things create a very comfortable environment for prosecutors to secure an indictment. I want to read two of the statutes that apparently came back on the indictment. One of them is U.S. Code 18 U.S. Code 241. If anyone's looking this up, Section 241 of 18 U.S. Code. It is referred to as a conspiracy against rights, which makes it a federal crime for two or more persons to conspire to injure, threaten, or to intimidate anyone in the United States in the free exercise or enjoyment.
Welcome, everybody. Hit that like button for me.
Right.
Hit the like button. Subscribe to the channel. Welcome. Come in. This is breaking news.
Can result up in fines up to 10 years in prison, or up to life imprisonment or death if certain serious crimes result. The other statute that appears that Don was charged under is 18 USC Section 248, which is known as the Freedom of Access to Clinic Entrances, or the FACE Act of 1994. This is a federal law that prohibits the use of force, threat of force, or physical obstruction to intentionally injure, intimidate, or interfere with anyone obtaining or providing reproductive health services or exercising First Amendment rights at a place of worship. So that last statute was intended to protect people who are seeking reproductive care or to exercise their right, what had previously been a right to abortion and abortion clinics primarily. And then the First Amendment piece around houses of worship had been added on. And the first piece was essentially about obstructing the ability for people to go and worship. Again, I want to stress to viewers that regardless of what the statutes say and regardless of what we may have seen in various videos, we do not know how the prosecutors in this case framed the facts in front of this particular grand jury that returned the indictment. What I will say before we go further, Monique, is that I think, however, it is telling. MS Now reporter Carol Lenning earlier today confirmed that there were career DOJ prosecutors in both Minnesota, where this took place, as well as in Los Angeles, where Don was arrested.
I think we have that if somebody can put it up.
Who refused to participate in the arrest and the indictment and the prosecution of this case because they felt like the evidence did not match the facts. And so that only affirms for me a previous
my voice certainly is not awake yet
notion that I've had, which is part of the punishment is the process. It is to sort of embarrass Don Lemon. It is to embarrass the journalists who are associated with Don Lemon in such a way that they are not willing to continue to go forward. And I think that that's a very significant thing. Georgia Fort as well, another journalist arrested as part of doing their job, exercising their right to freedom of the press. And so when you have career prosecutors who are saying that the evidence does not support the charges in 2 different cities, 2 different offices, that is extremely telling as to the strength of this case. But again, the strength of the case is not the conversation for the DOJ and for those who are pushing this. It is making the process and its difficulty the punishment for Don and for Georgia.
Right. And what they will learn is that they're just going to strengthen the resolve, not just of somebody like Don or Georgia, who have been doing this for years and are a credit to their profession, but they're strengthening the resolve of the public, because everyone who's seeing this is reacting, understanding that this is wrong, and that if there was ever some line to be crossed, then we've crossed it. But there are no lines with this administration. I want to highlight a couple of things that you said, Charles. Obviously, we say in the law all the time, the grand jury can indict a ham sandwich. The reason why we say that is because as a career defense attorney, one of the things I always knew is the grand jury belongs to the prosecutor.
Somebody's gonna indict my sandwich?
Unless they can't, and really, if they're trying to say Mickey Mouse was there, if they've got a sliver of anything to show it, they're going to get their indictment. And the reason is because the standard is lower. So sometimes the public is looking at it and they're thinking, well, there must be evidence, because in a criminal case, you have to prove things beyond a reasonable doubt in order to get a conviction. And that is true for conviction, but that is not true to get an indictment. And so whoever they found, because these career DOJ prosecutors wouldn't do the job, and we've seen prosecutors quit their jobs in DC. We've seen them quit their jobs in Minnesota. U.S. Attorneys, career members of that office have left their jobs. And so it's like many other things in this administration, Charles, where they have to go down the line until they get somebody who doesn't have any scruples, who doesn't have any integrity. Sometimes they have to go out and hire folks off the street. And that's how they get somebody to actually get this work done. To your knowledge,
something very interesting here. I actually have a copy of the FBI, part of the FBI indictment for Don Lemon is right here. So you could see victim 2 broke her arm exiting through the city's church office door when proceeding towards Saratoga Street. Victim 2 came out, the door was running. She slipped and broke her arm. I believe this is documented in, that could be redacted, Don Lemon, that could be Don Lemon's broadcast as described above. Per the report, victim 2 advised the SPPD that they were terrorized. Our children were weeping. College students and young women were sobbing. It was impactful, and it will take time to work through. So this is from the FBI indictment here. Let's go to paragraph 46. Victim 4. All right, so we have now four victims now, according to this FBI indictment. Members of their parish attempted to retrieve their children from the child care area located downstairs, but the agitators were blocking the stairs. So this states that they were blocking the stairs from people being able to get their children, and the parents were unable to get their children. Victim 4 recalled one agitator was threatening, aggressive, and intimidating towards parishioners. Additionally, this agitator was screaming and getting in people's faces, to include women and young children. Can't do that, son. This agitator continued to scream in the faces of young children while they were crying. So F that. F that. F all that. Seriously. Seriously. Victim 6 thought to himself, victim 6, that this was what it would feel like to be in a mass shooting. Victim 6 recalled people shouting and running, children crying, as well as people singing and praying. Wow, so that is from the FBI indictment. Let's get back to this.
What will the next steps be?
So at the point that the indictment is read in open court, there will be an initial plea entered by Don. I fully expect that it will be not guilty. And at that point, the judge will make a decision.
Where's that
as
perp
to
walk?
Any bail if the DOJ asks for bail. I can't imagine that Don would be remanded. I can't imagine that bail would be exorbitantly high. Don is not at all. And for people who are not certain as to how bail is set, the notion of bail is to make sure that someone has an incentive to return to trial. And so Don Lemon is someone who clearly has every interest in fighting these charges, that he absolutely, I imagine, through his lawyers will be eager to exonerate himself or have himself exonerated from these accusations. And he's like one of the most recognizable faces in journalism, if not media, across the country. He's not at all a flight risk. So I can't see bail being set here. And if it is, I certainly can't see it being high. That being said, after that, he will be released and there will be scheduling around the next phases of the case, discovery, pretrial motions, and things of that nature. I anticipate that there may be a case that is being built here, and we've talked about this before, Monique, for alleging malicious prosecution by the defense. It would not entirely surprise me to see that his attorneys consider filing a motion for malicious prosecution, and here's why. This is where the MAGA machine, the MAGA media machine, comes back to bite itself, because it is very uncharacteristic to have government officials, particularly at the leadership level, so openly and so brazenly talk about their intentions and how they intend to move forward with respect to investigations and prosecutions. And they've done that writ large with respect to Don Lemon around this. And so they have created their own very, very discoverable paper trail that's been out in the open, that they would literally have to stipulate to, that they, came from official accounts on social media. And so now you have given people the tools to build this case for malicious prosecution against Don.
Well, and not only that, Charles, but the chief judge wrote that letter that ended up being
I bet it was a lot more than that, Nunya. Shut up.
Public record,
Correct.
where this DOJ was pressuring him.
First time coming in here.
They couldn't get what they wanted out of the magistrate. They demanded the chief judge do something about it, and we're saying, and today we need you to do it today. And he had to go and explain a lot more than that. How he has a child with special needs who he was caring for, and how there was no urgency, and how they expected him to respond to their appeal without even sending him the appeal. They didn't send him a courtesy copy of what was being appealed, but were demanding his response. And so that led to these three appellate court judges denying it, saying there was no urgent matter. But the other thing the chief judge said in his letter was, there's no accusation of violence here. There's no reason for all of this overreach.
Someone broke their arm. See, that is somebody who hasn't read the indictment like we just read, right? We saw that there was violence. We saw there were injuries. Somebody broke their arm. They were blocking people from getting their children out of the daycare area.
And that, along with what you're saying, is they're devoting all of these funds, all of this full power of the federal government on these journalists and these people who were protesting. But for our
better than the moving background,
today, on journalists like Don and Georgia, who were covering an event, and there's no one saying anything different. And in Don's case, he sat there and interviewed the pastor who was conducting the services that day. So
he interviewed the pastor who asked him to leave, and he still didn't leave.
To me, if you stand there and let me interview you, that's not me trespassing.
Well, Monique, from a legal standpoint, I think that dovetails exactly into my next point. Eventually, the rubber is going to meet the road here when you're talking about having to provide evidence that sustains these charges. At some point, you are going to have to put forth witnesses that corroborate facts and a timeline that isn't supported by the video that we have all seen, repeatedly. You're going to have
But we
to
saw
sort
the
of
pastor ask him to leave more than once.
counter that. And that is where I say that for the DOJ, the punishment is the process, because the amount of evidence that they have, whether you're putting testimonial evidence up against video evidence and going to ask a jury in a court to sort of discern what makes most sense. Are you going to believe the testimony of someone who alleges that they were there and says, oh, something that you can't see on video, or are you going to trust your own actual eyes as you look at angle after angle after angle that is explained by attorneys and through testimony of other witnesses who were there and corroborated by the video that actually exists? They know that they cannot sustain this. And that is why career prosecutors are like, I don't want my name associated with this. But again, for people who are saying, but why would they do this? They would do it for the intimidation factor. They would do it for the embarrassment factor. They would do it because oftentimes the retraction is always quieter than the headline. That is to say, today, Don Lemon being arrested is breaking news. It is a celebration in Magaland. It is red meat for that base. But at the point that the case is dismissed, at the point that the case moves on, that's not something that is as much of a conversation for them. So in their minds, from a narrative place, they maintain control. So for anyone who's wondering why would they go for it if they didn't have the charges, because it's not about the conviction, it's about the embarrassment.
Right. And Don isn't embarrassed, and neither is Georgia. And we stand with them, and it is going to backfire, not just when it's dismissed, but now, because they look ridiculous. They look like they don't care anything about the Constitution.
Oh, remember what she said, by the way. We're going to remember that later when it's dismissed and everybody's going to be embarrassed. Okay.
They look like they don't respect journalists, which we know they don't. And to speak
It's a grand jury indictment.
I am thankful.
It's a grand jury indictment. This lady is in La La Land, baby.
We have joining us on the show, not for nearly the first time, but we have Aaron Haynes, who is president of the National Bar, not the National Bar Association, that's my association, National Association of Black Journalists. We have Reese Colbert, host of the Reese Colbert Show on Sirius XM Urban View. And we have, I think we have Clay Kane also. Do we have Clay? Hi there, Clay. Host of the Clay Kane Show. And you know what? You guys have all been on Don's show any number of times, and we look to you to provide us the information, the commentating, and the analysis that we need. I want to start with you, though, Aaron, because on behalf of Black journalists, and I know that journalists from a lot of different other associations stood with you when you all first made a statement over a week ago.
Thank you so much for the $5 super chat. Zion Moore says, why are these guys championing an obvious guilty guy? Well, we'll see how that turns out. I really do thank you for the super chat. Thank you for joining me.
What do you have to
All
say to us
super chats
today?
get read out.
Yeah, I mean, look, obviously, we are standing with and
Thank you
supporting
again.
Don and also Georgia Ford, the journalists who were arrested this morning. But this is not about one journalist or one protest. This is really about whether the First Amendment is still going to protect journalism, right? Especially journalism that is challenging power and centering marginalized communities. NABJ is obviously deeply concerned and even outraged, frankly, by the arrests of Don Lemon and Georgia Ford. They weren't obstructing justice. We know this. They were practicing journalism. And arresting journalists for news gathering is a direct threat to press freedom. And that is the message that I need for folks to hear today.
Innocent until
these
proven
actions are
guilty,
not
but
unprecedented.
we'll
We
see.
know that Black journalists have long been surveilled, right? Arrested, targeted for exposing injustice. And so what we're seeing now is an alarming continuation of that pattern and an escalation that demands a response.
Well, arrested for
It does
violations
demand a
of the
response.
FACE Act, some other civil rights violations.
Just a follow-up, Aaron.
This was a grand jury indictment. This is a federal arrest. And keep in mind the very high percentage of convictions that the federal governments get once they make an arrest. Well in the high 90s.
What does that look like to you? I know that NABJ will be...
And with a very public arrest like this, I doubt the FBI is going to want to lose any face on this or any of the DOJ. So this could go all the way.
issuing a statement, and you're speaking on behalf of the organization now, but what is the call to action, either for the public or for those of us who are in front of cameras and have the opportunity to speak?
Yeah, well, I mean, look, I think first and foremost, we need transparency from authorities about the legal basis.
Okay, we're going to go back to the protests here real quick. A little palate cleanser. A little bit of a palate cleanser. This is live in Minneapolis. Out in front of the Whipple building. Keep in mind, this is supposed to be the day where everybody, they don't work, they don't shop. I'm going shopping today. I got to go to the store. All right? This is supposed to be a nationwide boycott. No, not for me.
Our neighbors. We are Minnesota. We protect 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 our neighbors. We are Minnesota.
I need some bananas. I need some mushrooms. I need to go to the store. There will be no boycott for me today.
Minnesota. We protect our neighbors. We are Minnesota. We protect our neighbors.
Everybody hit that like button. Go ahead, or double tap that screen.
We are Minnesota. We protect our neighbors. We are Minnesota.
It doesn't matter.
We protect our neighbors.
Big shout out to BG on the scene. I already have rice. I just need the bananas. I walked right into that one.
Anyone on U.S. soil is a criminal handcuffing. What ICE is doing to people is against humanity. It is inhumane.
And this is, from what I can see currently, a peaceful protest outside the Whipple building in Minneapolis. It is cold there, yo. I haven't heard this one yet about the why are you in riot gear? There is no riot here. I haven't heard that one yet. Thanks, Robert.
Why are you in riot gear? Shame on you, murderers! Shame on you! Shame!
This is what Don Lemon heard.
FBI, open up!
There you go.
Yes, I'm talking to you! Shame on you! Shame! Murder!
Oh.
Are you gonna be proud of that? Tell your little girls and little boys about that? Yeah, you won't because you'll be ashamed. Shame on you! Shame! Shame on you! Shame! Get out of here! Shame! Shame on you! Shame!
Leave Shane alone.
You're destroying our democracy! Who do you stand with? You! Who do you stand with? You're destroying our democracy! It's not a job, man. You don't have to be doing this. You don't have to defend this bullshit. Go home, get another job. I'm showing my kids this picture of you. This is the person that's wrecking our country right here. Look at me. Look at me. You. Look at me. You're wrecking our country. Who are you defending? Who are you defending? You're horrible. How do you sleep at night? You don't have to do this. Get a real job. Stop terrorizing the people of Minnesota.
Ice out now! 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 Ice out now!
Ice out now! Ice out now! If you didn't do this, there'd be nobody terrorizing us.
Ice out now!
That are causing this country to go to demise. You're wrecking our democracy.
Hey.
You should be protecting your brothers.
Officers, your mother shall swallow. You should have been here. Bye. Not too late to boil yourself, officers. Not too late. Go back to Jackson. Thank you. Go back to the Abbott's house.
I think we have something new cooking over here. Let's check this out.
That is what we need for people to keep in mind. Journalism that holds power to account is not a crime. And we continue to assert that the First Amendment is not optional.
Well, I want to hear from Clay, but it's my understanding that the leader, Hakeem Jeffries, is in a press conference right now addressing this issue. So let's go to that.
Oh, come on, guys. They can't get the audio. Let's look this up ourselves.
Audio.
Entitled to the presumption of innocence. She's going through the process right now. And
let's go back to the beginning.
Of American citizens, period, full stop.
Hakeem
and
Jeffries.
Agents who are brutalizing everyday Americans and law-abiding immigrant families, targeting
Don Lemon fan, Hakeem, giving a press conference about Don Lemon's arrest.
Should be investigated and prosecuted independently of the Department of Justice. We cannot trust the Department of Justice. They're an illegitimate organization right now under the leadership of Pam Bondi and the direction of Donald Trump. And so, if anything, the events of today reinforce, as it relates to the Department of Justice targeting journalists and part of the free and fair press, that the Department of Justice cannot be trusted to freely and fairly work through the criminal justice system. And it reinforces our demand that agents who violate the law should be investigated and prosecuted independent of the Department of Justice and the Trump administration and state and local officials. It should be made clear that they have the investigative and prosecutorial authority to go after any rogue actors who are part of ICE, CBP, or the Department of Homeland Security. Yeah.
Sir, thank you so much for your time. Could I ask you your reaction to the Republicans' new voter integrity plan, the mega bill, and are there any provisions that the Democrats could support there?
It's a dead on arrival bill. They know it. Listen, voter suppression is part of the Republican plan to try desperately to hold on to power. Republicans, since the beginning of this administration, have been losing elections all across the country. They've been wiped out electorally. The American people know that it's Democrats who are focused on making their life better, driving down the high cost of living, and fixing our broken healthcare system. And it's Republicans who have unleashed this extremism and brutality on the American people and this assault on the American way of life, our values and our democracy, and have had enough of it. And so Republicans are playing games, just like was evidenced by the unprecedented FBI raid in Fulton County, Georgia. Republicans don't want a free and fair election because they know when that happens, and will ensure that it happens, they're going to lose. They're going to lose the House. They're going to get crushed all throughout America. So the latest voter suppression bill is not a serious thing. Let's just be clear about that. You're asking me a legitimate question, but it's an illegitimate bill. That's dead on arrival. It's going nowhere.
I do have a policy follow-up on that bill, just regarding, I remember covering during the first Trump administration, Democrats were very concerned about Russia meddling in elections. Are you confident that the current election systems in all 50 states and U.S. territories will protect the ballot of U.S. voters?
What I am thankful about is that the administration of elections are done locally as opposed to in the hands of the Trump administration and this group of corrupt sycophants.
Mr. Leader, I just wanted to know if you are going to be whipping against
Shots fired.
the resolution that Greg Steube said he's going to force a vote next week to expel Sheila Phillips McCormick.
Congresswoman is, of course, entitled to the presumption of innocence.
You think he's getting a little cash from those daycares?
She's going through the process right now, and any effort to expel her lacks any basis at this moment.
Hit the like button for me, guys.
Fact or the Constitution. And if, in fact, there's a resolution that is brought to the floor to try to expel the Congresswoman, it's going to fail. It's going to fail. It requires 2/3. It's an exercise that is just designed to get attention and is inconsistent with what due process requires at this moment.
Mr. Leader, if progressive groups are criticizing this deal that's coming out of the Senate, do you think the criticism
What
of
groups?
Chuck Schumer, progressives are
What
criticizing
groups?
it,
I'm
saying
asking.
it, none specifically, but different ones here
Well,
and
it's
there.
hard to respond if I have no idea what groups you're talking about, because I speak to groups all the time, and I haven't heard that criticism.
We don't like
Do
it
you
too-
support the deal?
Thanks. I haven't, there's no agreement that's been before us right now. Lindsey Graham apparently is holding up the agreement, threatening to shut down the government, because apparently Senate Republicans still support using taxpayer dollars to brutalize American citizens. And on top of it, to make matters worse, apparently Lindsey Graham wants access to a multi-million-dollar taxpayer-funded slush fund. That's insanity. So
Seriously.
the Senate has to do its thing before we have anything to evaluate. But I'm going to remain in close contact with Leader Schumer, and hopefully they'll get something done today.
Leader, you said that you were supportive, the House Democrats are supportive of breaking the bills apart, though, and doing the 5 alongside a short-term CR for Homeland. Do you see any problems?
Now, what I said, just to be clear, what I said is that we demanded from the very beginning, which John Thune said would never happen. John Thune said it's not happening. Then he brought the entire package together to the Senate floor yesterday, and it failed spectacularly. Notwithstanding what John Thune said, which is the bills are not going to be separated out. They will be separated out. We made that demand, and it's happening. And Donald Trump has agreed to that, apparently. So that's what we're supportive of. In terms of evaluating the path forward relative to the Department of Homeland Security legislation, we're going to have to evaluate what the real opportunity is to get dramatic change at the Department of Homeland Security. It needs to be bold, it needs to be meaningful, and it needs to be transformative. And absent a path toward accomplishing
Like fair
dramatic
use.
change and making sure that ICE and DHS are conducting themselves like every other law enforcement agency in the country, then Republicans are going to cause another government shutdown.
Partisan, partisan, partisan.
They won't give another penny for ICE. Do you see any
It's
problem
all
passing
partisan.
stopgap
Both sides.
on Homeland Security if that comes back to the House? Do you think the Democrats will be forced to carry the water if they bring that up?
It all
for
depends
suspension?
on, well, are you talking about a continuing resolution?
Yeah, like a 2-week stopgap on a Homeland bill.
Well, it all depends on how people interpret, a continuing resolution. If it's 2 weeks, that's a freeze on ICE funding. That's not an additional amount being given to
I
ICE.
mean,
That's
do you
just
guys
being
think we should
right.
freeze ICE funding? Do you think we should? Who put a 1 in the chat if you think we should freeze ICE funding? Put a 2 in the chat if you think we should fund ICE. 1 for no funding, 2 for funding. Let's hear you.
But we'll have to evaluate whatever comes together.
It's interactive.
Once Graham stops his temper tantrum, and clearly he's going to have to drop his objection because of his obsessive quest to get this multi-million-dollar slush fund. This is insanity. This is who the Republicans have become. Why aren't they focusing on making life better for the American people? We are. We want to promote the health, the safety, and the economic well-being of everyday Americans. That's what the appropriations process is all about.
Hey, Mopes.
But Republicans are
Good
making
morning.
it about themselves and their billionaire donors rather than keep the American people safe.
Emotional damage.
I don't know where that came from.
They have some demands. How do you plan to get this new final product?
There it is. There it is.
Your caucus feels comfortable with it.
There it is, Ivor. Don't spam the chat, David.
Demands being made by far-right extremists in the House Republican Conference are going nowhere. And if for whatever reason Speaker Johnson bends the knee to the far right, then Republicans are going to shut the government down because they would apparently have zero interest.
Well, aren't all
in getting
politicians?
ICE and the Department of Homeland Security under control, which their own voters are demanding happen. Their own voters.
Last week you expressed hope for a resolution before the House.
All right, let's get back to the protests here. We're going to get back to that Don Lemon story in just a second. We might even see his, I might even be on long enough to catch his hearing.
Who are you serving?
Ice out now! 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 Get the hell out of here!
Big shout out to BG on the scene, who always does some great coverage.
Aren't you here to protect us, not attack us? This is not your job. To protect us, not to attack us. Ah, hypocrites. Hypocrites, you're not here to protect no one. You're here to protect the white and the elite. You are here to protect the white and the elite, aka your people, the ICE people. You're not here to protect shit out here. Did someone know?
All right, I just found something interesting here. This is a take from Judge Andrew Napolitan. Let's have a listen.
Andrew Napolitano is our senior judicial analyst. Good morning to you with this breaking news.
It's a strange case. 5 different judges reviewed the evidence against Don Lemon. A magistrate judge who said no, a district court judge who happens to be the chief judge of that district who said no, and 3 appellate judges in the 8th Circuit said no. It is almost unheard of for the DOJ to appeal a denial of the issue of an arrest warrant. They went to the magistrate judge. Here's our evidence against the people that raided the church. We want to arrest all of them. The magistrate judge said there's evidence against this one. There's enough against this one, enough against that one. There's no evidence against Don Lemon. The district judge said no evidence against Don Lemon. The 3 appellate court judges refused to get involved, so they effectively agreed with what the lower judges had decided. So how did they arrest him? The only other way they could have arrested him legally is to have gone to a grand jury and presented the same evidence
That's what
that
they
these
did.
5 judges said didn't exist and persuaded a majority of the grand jury to indict him. If he was not indicted by a grand jury, then this was not an arrest, it was a kidnapping. because you have these 5 federal judges saying we're not signing off on an arrest warrant.
Yeah, but that's far-fetched, right? It doesn't appear to be a kidnapping.
It's almost inconceivable to me, because they know the law as well or better than I do, that they would have to have some legal basis to arrest him other than their own wish to arrest him, and that must have come from a grand jury.
So let's take it on the merits of where it is today. They were able to at least secure some type of charge based on whichever evidence that we don't have to show just yet.
But we don't know what it is.
We don't know what it is, exactly. But we do know that he is in federal custody.
Correct. He's in federal custody in Los Angeles because that's where they found him.
Yeah.
He's going to appear before a federal magistrate judge in Los Angeles. He'll be released on his own recognizance. Then he's got to appear before a federal district court judge in the district where the grand jury sat. Under the Constitution, that has to be the district in which the crime allegedly occurred, which
back
means
to Minnesota.
Back to Minneapolis, where all this started.
Yeah. In terms of the charges, what they possibly are, it hasn't been announced yet, but there have been reports of what they are, which I read earlier. The FACE Act, a violation of the FACE Act, sticks out to me. If indeed that is one of the charges, what does that hold?
Well, that he's
if charged and convicted,
5 years in jail if convicted.
Whoa.
He's probably being charged, if I could guess.
Wow, 5 to I thought it was 8 earlier, so we're looking at 5 to 8 for Don Lemon if charged. I mean, and if convicted,
with conspiracy to violate the FACE Act.
That's
they
the big one.
probably have some people with whom he participated in conversations about how to get into the church. Because it does appear from the videos that he didn't do anything even remotely criminal.
Even when the pastor asked him to leave and he did not leave.
Well, the other journalist didn't leave either. I mean, he said,
does that make it right?
Well, they have a great question, Sean. I can't answer it yes or no, but I can say that there are numerous Supreme Court opinions that say bona fide journalists can stay at the scene of a crime if the acts are still ongoing, as long as their presence there is not interfering with law enforcement. Now, when the pastor said leave, law enforcement hadn't even gotten there yet.
Hey, but if it was found that he, along with the organizers of this, to go inside of that church and again stop that service.
If he stopped the service, it's a federal crime.
Okay.
If he didn't leave when they said leave, that's simple trespassing. The feds don't even have the authority to prosecute.
Conspiracy to violate the FACE Act, and if he's convicted there,
now that's a big one.
What penalty is he looking at?
Okay, conspiracy is an agreement to commit a crime amongst 2 or more people, one of whom takes a step in furtherance of the agreement. So if he agreed to commit the crime and then did nothing, but one of the others with whom he agreed took a step in furtherance, then he can be charged with conspiracy. 5 years. Conspiracy to commit the crime is generally the same punishment as the actual crime.
5 years in federal prison for that charge alone, if he's charged with it.
Itself.
So I just want to break this down and end it with, let's put a bow on it. This could be a serious charge.
It's a serious charge
for Don Lemon.
It's a serious blow to journalism. I do believe that some other journalists were involved who are not nearly as well known as Don Lemon. We'll know more about that later today.
Wow, that is crazy. Let's get back over
and we're
here.
back, y'all. Thank you for watching today. Go ahead and hit that like button, my people.
So here's a little bit of coverage
out
of
a ton. And of course, it helps you because it helps us keep bringing you these stories every day. Now, y'all
I got the wrong video. This is something I was watching. Let's go back to the protests. I'll be right back to Don Lemon.
Protecting pedophile to protect the citizens of Minnesota. Who are you protecting by doing this? Not us. Shame!
Stop here, guys, people protesters. We're not even doing anything. We're using our First Amendment rights out here that we are protected by.
Do you guys check each other off at the end of the day?
Who gets to drink it? Your fucking Constitution.
Probably a little sharp fuck in this car here.
And your fucking bags of dumb as shit.
We'll grab a little more coffee. I'll be right back.
We're not even doing this peaceful protest. You need to know what that was.
This isn't a video game, you cosplay fucker! We need for real live people this time!
That fucking ass building, that's where you
Get on your cum suck chair! Get on your protest with us!
You don't know nothing about peaceful protests, you've never been to one. That's why. You're not used to peaceful protests. That's why. You only care about Jerry Fixer.
Who need a family? A son who runs Hey, mustache! I do, yeah, I do.
You are protecting fashion!
We are in this. Georgia. They all go back to Florida. Is that what you signed up for? You don't still be here. So what did you do? You're right. Who the fuck are you?
We trust nothing. They're like, all right,
Don't get fucked up.
Run back to Nazi headquarters.
Fuck you!
What are you doing? We're Minnesotans, right? Put the tear gas away. Quit drawing. And then they left. I don't know. Well, she did say you can stay here if you want. Well, that's
Thank you.
Over to there was a situation with Don Lemon and Nicki Minaj over the ICE pastor controversy. Let's take a look at that.
Don Lemon has to respond to homophobic comments from, well, Nicki Minaj. There's an update. Here it is.
So people have been asking me about responding to Nicki Minaj's unhinged homophobic tweet about me. I usually don't respond to this stuff, but let me just say this. Nicki Minaj, stop talking about for which you know nothing about. This is out of your depth, by the way, and you are a homophobic bigot. You don't care about African Americans. You're not an African American. From what I know, you are reportedly an undocumented citizen, so you should be deported under Donald Trump's rules. And the other thing is that your family members, you have one family member who is reportedly a sex offender, the other family member, your husband or whatever, a sex offender is your husband, and one of them is reportedly a pedophile. And you have nerve to talk about me and what you think that I do? Nicki Minaj, get a life. Stop being a pick-me.
Wow.
Put up the picture full mask.
Shots
Some
fired.
interesting and relevant things to note. One, the statement was offered in criticism and in
Wait, is this reporter on the slow bus? What's going on?
opposition
In
to the humanity of Don Lemon.
Paul.
So let's be clear about the context of the statement. Okay? Whatever that brother does in his own relationship is his business as a consenting adult with another consenting adult. Period. We assume Nicki Minaj believed the same. In addition to that, her public about face to embrace the standards or lack of standards of MAGA has also been trending in the news. I think there's a connection I will explain in a moment. Let me give you the background to how it started. January 18th, a video posted online by Black Lives Matter.
First of all, it's like minus 10 in Minneapolis. That's not going to happen, and stop it.
This was a Minnesota protest. Minnesota protesters entering City's church in St. Paul, where they said one of the pastors, David Easterwood, is the acting field director of the St. Paul Ice Field office.
So?
On Saturday, Lemon shared a video on his social media accounts of him interviewing protesters in Minneapolis. This was before they interrupted a local church service, chanting, quote, "ICE out," and demanding justice for Renee Good. I want you to keep that picture up, Jordan, because I've seen governmental entities, I've seen moderate political individuals who have been duped, and I've seen conservatives or those on the MAGA.
This guy's putting me to sleep. I'm sorry. We're going to go back to the protest. Wow. I mean, seriously, what a morning. This has been quite a morning so far. Quite a morning. So here we are. Don Lemon wants one of the most recognizable faces in cable news now trending because of an arrest in Los Angeles. That is crazy. Now, for some people, this could be shocking. For others, you know, some people are just digging it. So beyond the memes and the hot takes, though, you know, he is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. So we got to recognize that. I also want to thank everybody for coming out and joining me today on the program. I'm going to jump off for a while. We surely will have some more breaking news later. Hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, leave a comment in the comment section below. And remember, the truth is, from the pineapple to the big apple from Maine to Spain, the truth is a moving target. I want to thank everybody for being here. I will see you on the next one. Thank you.